Hi everybody, I'm up in the orchard today and I'm going to be doing some grafting. I've got some cuttings from varieties of apple that I want to graft. I want to reproduce these trees, and I've got lots of rootstocks in the ground. You can see behind me in these tubes. They're MM106 rootstocks, so that's a kind of semi-dwarfing, should grow to about maybe 16 foot, 18 foot maybe, depending on conditions and lots of other factors. So I planted the rootstocks out late winter when they arrived, and I've got cuttings of various varieties. This is taken from a Yarlington mill tree, which is a cider apple, a very nice cider apple too. So I want to plant more of these trees, or make more of these trees. The reason why we graft is if you want to recreate a particular variety, you can't just plant a seed from the apple that came from a tree of that variety. You have to take a cutting and then graft it onto the rootstock. Obviously a seed has been pollinated, so it'll have two parents, and therefore it won't produce, it won't grow into a tree that will produce fruit which is the same as the apple that you took the pip from. Hopefully that was explained all right. So anyway, here we are. I've got some Yarlington mill cuttings. I want to do quite a few of these. I've already got some here behind me in this row, which I grafted I think 2 years ago. But I'm going to graft the entire row next to it as well, because I want quite a lot of this variety. So yeah, I've got my cuttings, I've got my rootstocks in the ground, I've got a pair of secateurs, and I've got a sharp knife, fairly thin blade. This is actually a whittling knife. Sometimes I use an opinel, and I've given it a bit of a sharpen, which hopefully you can see it's reasonably sharp. And then apart from that, I've got some strips of plastic. Now this is simply just little carrier bags, the sort you get your Chinese takeaway in, and cut into strips. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the rootstock and the cutting, the scion, in a particular way that it fits together, and then I'm going to wrap it and tie it just to secure it while hopefully it fuses. Right, a couple of points. It's best if you keep your cuttings, you're supposed to take your cuttings in the winter when the tree is dormant, and then store them in a cool, dark place. You can put them in a fridge. These have been in a fridge this year. That seems to be quite a good method of storage. Otherwise you can put them in, stick them in a pot of soil somewhere in the shade, and keep them out of the way somewhere. I've done that in the past, that also works, but I think the fridge method is probably better. And you don't want to be doing your grafts until you can see that the sap is rising. So I'm going to show you that, and I'm going to show you a couple of grafts that I've, like I say, I did a couple of years ago, and we'll have a look at those, and I'll show you the union between rootstock and cutting. Oh, I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful day. So I'm taking the tube off this one. Usually I use spirals. They're quite good, they're easy to wrap around. I ordered a load more tubes. I didn't realise they were the sort with a slit up the side, but they're going to work. They'll be alright for what I want today. I also bought a load of canes today, so I'll be able to put a cane on, and then I'll be able to slide that over and it won't move, because the last thing I want after attempting to graft all these trees is the wind to blow the tube and knock the graft out of where I'm going to join it in. So here's our little Yarlington mill tree. Okay, and here is the union. Is that focused? So this is the rootstock here below. It's actually got a bit of growth. I don't really want that growth on there. I'm just going to pinch that off with the fingernails, because I want the energy growing up into the cutting above. Now I've done it, and I tend to do it this way. It's a really simple method, and I'll show you it in action in a moment. Here's the rootstock. I simply split it down the middle with the sharp knife. Well, actually, before that, I'll snip the top off with a pair of secateurs, and then I'll split it, and then on the scion, the cutting, make a corresponding V, and then slide it in. And the main thing is getting the cambium layer to join up. That's the bit where the sap rises. So, I mean, if you've got a fat rootstock and a thin cutting, you can do it, just do it on one side. So on one side, the V that you've cut here matches up with the bark, then the sap will rise. Now this is why I do it. I wait until it's evident that the sap is rising before I do it. So it's just got, you know, the best chance of it working. I did it last year quite late on. I think I did it in June. The date today is the 20th of April, but you know, it's a nice warm day. Looking at these rootstocks, they've all got green on them, so the sap is rising. And yeah, there we go. So there it is. If it'll focus on it, just go around the tree. Hard to make out on this side because the we've got a bit of glare. Now I wouldn't worry too much about where have we gone? About the fact it's wide here. As the tree grows, you won't be able to see that in a year or two. Yeah. So this was the height of the first bit I put on. You only need a section with a few buds on it. So out of one, you know, a foot long shoot that you might take from a tree, you can cut that into maybe 3 pieces and graft it onto 3 different rootstocks. This is the growth from the first year up to here, and it did this little bit last year. I think that's right. From what I can tell, I think this is where this year's growth has started, and this will soon be flushing. Yeah. So that's grafting. That's the explanation, and hopefully in a few years' time, if you can see here, we'll have some decent sized trees. You can see all those. I don't mean these small ones on the front. There's some Perry pear trees that I actually bought those in. Although I do have a wild pear that I'm going to be grafting as well. I did some the other year which are in these tubes, and then I've got quite a few which didn't take. It wasn't very successful. So all those little green whippy things you can see, they're actually a quince rootstock. So I'm going to be grafting a local wild pear tree, which I'm quite hopeful to make a really nice perry. I'll be grafting those as well, and down the line, quite a few years when they start producing probably, I'll be able to make some perry. Okay, all these varieties of apple behind me, there are lots of different varieties: cider apples, eating apples. Got a nice mix, and that's what I'm going to be doing down here. I've got over 100 rootstocks in down there, and I think I've got, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 yarns in the mill at the moment, and I think I've got 4 on the end of the road to graft, and I'm going to graft the row next to it as well, so I'll probably end up with about 40 yarns of mill trees. Anyway, enough waffling. Time for some graft. So here we are on the first one. You can see that's about getting on for 2 foot. It's got loads of green on the top. I'm going to graft it down here. It doesn't need to be all the way up there. I'm going to choose a bit where there's a lot of knobbles on here. I'm going to try and choose a bit where it's, I'll cut it off just underneath the knobble. I should say it's quite important to have clean knives and secateurs, so I've just used boiling water and pour boiling water over them just to sterilise them. Gave them a bit of a scrub before that. So snip there, Now, hopefully you can see the green cambium layer. Quite hard to get it to focus, but that's the top of where I've snipped off. The woody bit's in the middle, the light green coloured bit around the outside, just inside the bark. The outer layer of the bark, that's the cambium layer, that's where the sap's going to be rising. So let's see if I can set this up so you can see what I'm doing. Here's my cutting. Just going to snip off the bottom of that. And because it's been stored nice and cold in the fridge, that's nice and green inside. If it snaps and if it was like a dead twig and it was brown, it wouldn't be any good, but hopefully this will be. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Should be able to get 2 grafts out of this. Now, like I said, it is quite a bit smaller than the one on top, so I'm just going to graft it on one side, and hopefully, all being well, it will take. So I'm going to get my knife. Now, very carefully, I'm going to cut in the middle. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just rocking the blade. I'm putting this thumb on the one below it as a kind of stop, because the last thing I want to do is to suddenly whip down and cut into my other hand. There we go. So I can see the kind of shape I want. That V there. I'm going to try and cut into that to make a corresponding V. Let's see if that fits. Not bad, not bad. I'm quite happy with that. That's you see the bark is virtually joined up. Hopefully you can see that. It's not really good at focusing sometimes on these. Well, you get the idea. I'm not sure if that's focusing well. Now, what did I say? I'm going to leave a few budding points on there. 1, 2, 3. I think I'll go there, and then hopefully that will take. And then I've got this bit I can stick on the next one. Oh, lovely hot day. So next, got a strip from my carrier bag. I don't think it'd need the whole length. I'm just going to rip that in half. And now I'm going to just make sure that's right. It's important not to touch any of the pieces that you've cut, because any bacteria on your hands, it might have a negative impact on whether it takes or not. So I'm literally just going to wrap that round. So we've covered the whole thing, and I'm literally just going to tie that once, and then pray that it'll be alright. Give it a little kiss. There we go. I don't normally do that, I'm just showing off for the camera. Anyway, I bought these canes. I'm going to stick that in. Oops. Put my tube back on carefully. It's the only thing about these tubes, you have to slide them over really. Now I've got the tubes to protect the bark of the tree from such things as voles. which are a nightmare if you get them in your orchard. I don't really have rabbits up here, but I do also have muntjac. Now these will keep them safe from the muntjac to start with, because they're only, well, it's only up to there. It's got all that growing room to do yet. Right, that's one done. I think this will keep me busy for a bit. Yeah, no, yeah, the way I'm doing it is quite a simple method. There are other techniques of grafting. I'll just very quickly show you one method if I can, using this piece that I cut off. Now, I haven't done this for a while, so I've cut it at an angle like this. I didn't do it very well, to be fair. This is a very quick demo. And what you can do is, about halfway down, cut in a little tongue, corresponding bit on the other side, and then, so you do that on your rootstock, you do that with your cutting, then ideally you can stick them together like that. It's a little bit more fiddly, and the simple method that I've shown you is pretty effective, so I just do it that way. But luckily I did that one quite well for the demo. I don't know if you can see it. Put the knife back in the sheath. So yeah, two little bits sticking out here and on this one, and just slide together. So there we go. That's how to graft apple trees, and obviously any other fruit tree as well. Hope you enjoyed this video, and send some good lucks to my little trees. Thank you very much for watching. If this was useful, give us a thumb up, give us a lift somewhere, and feel free to add any comments. Thanks very much, cheers and bye, peace and love.